Hi, it's Harpreet from Western Singh Law Firm. Today I want to talk about evictions, landlord relation, eviction. It's I think a topic on everybody's mind because home is a very important place in your life, and especially in COVID times where everything was kind of shut down. Means you were at your home, and if you imagine that you would be evicted out from your home, it was a very scary, I think, proposition. So in that situation, and if you remember, I just want to take you back in March 2020. We have just started with this pandemic. Everything was shut down in the mid March, and similar thing with the courts, because courts are basically public place, so they have to unfortunately shut down their operations. So the judicial council, which administered the courts, it's one of the agencies in the state under the judicial branch of our government. So judicial council in April 2020 had just came up with a moratorium on evictions, which was a temporary emergency rule, which was required because obviously people were at home, and there was a great concern that if we are asking people to be at home and not to go out unless there is some essential work, and if there is a whole sleeve of eviction because loss of jobs, reduced hours, and whole lot of financial I think hardship for for I think every person you can imagine in this world. In those situations, we just need to, I think, restrict eviction so that people can get some comfort at their home, and we can also address COVID-19 pandemic. So obviously, I think there was no other option than a moratorium, and this moratorium was placed in for a temporary period of time because, as you know, judicial council, judiciary, it's not there to make laws or to create new laws. Obviously, they interpret laws and apply laws. Then judicial council thought after a few months that this is not our work. Our work is to implement laws. So legislature should take the lead on this and create some kind of other solution for eviction and how to regulate those. So on end of September 1st, 2020, the judicial council's temporary emergency rule, it was gone ultimately because judicial council decided that they just don't want to continue it because they are not legislature. So there was, I think, great deal of a whole lot of uh, effort went into in either talking with the landlords or with the apartment owners or the associations which represent them to come up with some kind of a solution. So the legislature on August 31st have passed a bill which was called AB 3088. So was an assembly bill, originated from assembly, then passed in Senate, and then governor signed it, and it was effective since August 31st. So let's see, I think, what's the impact of this AB 3088 on tenants, and basically what it provides. And again, it provides only temporary protection on the tenant side, and also it try to address a few things on the landlord side, because you have to understand landlords are in financial stress, obviously because of the payments they are not able to make because they have mortgages. And especially if we look on the smaller tenants who only have like couple of units or 3 units, it's a very big hardship because the payments, as you know, and also the houses have increased in value since 2008. So the payment, and especially based on your counties, it would be a whole lot to grasp. And also you have to understand landlords, if they are working in certain jobs, their jobs probably lost, reduced hours, childcare issues, and whole lot of other things which they are also going through. So these solutions, again, I think it was a great effort on the side of legislature. They probably were not able to address all the issues, and obviously every hardship, but still they address some things about the landlords. First, let's, I think, look in the video what is the impact or the effect on the tenants, and then in the next video we will look on what is the effect on the landlord, and how, if still they want to do eviction, how they can do it. So on the tenants, obviously you have to again understand this is for residential landlord tenant relationship, for residential properties. This is not for commercial. So AB 3088 is not for commercial tenancy. So for commercial tenancy, unfortunately, the Judicial Council's moratorium was basically for all the evictions, but at present there is no statewide, I think, moratorium on commercial tenancy. However, there are few of the moratorium provided by local municipalities, either it's your counties or your city. So you have to just look those, but there is no statewide kind of complete ban on commercial tenancy. So if a landlord wants to kick out you from your business, they can do it if you have not paid the rent. So let's see on the residential tenancy side how this law had affected and what are the requirements for the tenant to get these protections from eviction. So if suppose a tenant has rent due from March and August, if suppose tenant has not paid any kind of rent from March to August, or paid partial rent, if it were a normal situation, obviously you would probably have got the 3-day notice, and that eviction proceedings start, complaint is filed, and then you just go to your hearing and you're done. But in this situation, if you are not paid your rent for March and August, then simply what you have to do, you have to provide your landlord a hardship letter. It's basically a declaration of hardship, where you would mention your landlord, okay, because of COVID, and hardship needs to be, obviously financial hardship need to be related to COVID-19, that because of COVID you lost your job, or you lost number of hours, you're not making much. There is a whole burden about now childcare and things like that. So you need to provide that declaration to the landlord, and it needs to be as soon as possible if you're due on March and August, before your landlord can start the tenant eviction proceedings. So the letter would provide you protection. However, you need to understand, if suppose you have not paid, so your March to August rent is not paid, and next your from September to January 2021, within these September, October, November, December, January, so like 5 months, if suppose you have not paid complete rent, in order to get this protection for March to August, you need to pay at least 25% of rent for September to January. Again, listen, if you have not paid the rent for March to August, or if there is even partial payment, you have not made complete payment, if you want the protection of this law, you need to pay at least 25% of rent for September to January. And what that means, again, you have to understand that the state is not providing you any kind of waiver for this payment. You are still obligated legally to make complete payment for complete rent to the landlord. This is just a temporary protection to keep you in place so we can deal properly with COVID-19 or God knows till vaccine is reached. So this is a temporary protection, but you need to pay at least 25% rent for September to January, and also provide a declaration of financial hardship to your landlord in order to get this protection. Obviously, if you have funds, just pay the complete rent, because the issue is that if there are interests and other thing, and the late fees, those are just stacking up, and you are still legally obligated. So after January, you just see a whole lot of rent for, if you have not paid for 10, 11 months, then you have a problem. And it's very difficult to pay for 10 months of rent in any kind of situation, regardless it's COVID or it's some kind of recession going on. Regardless of that, it's really very hard. If you can pay it, you should pay it. And the next thing is that the landlord, now the landlord would be thinking about that, like, okay, means if the state is not waiving it, so when I would get all this rent? So you can file a small claims action, again, depending on the limit. If it's 10,000 or if it's about 10,000, then obviously you go limited civil case or unlimited based on your amount. So you can get collection of all those, I think, rent due after March 2021, because January, so it provides like 1 month, February 2021 for the tenants to just, I think, just be little, I think, on the planning side, how to pay this rent. So since starting from March 2021, you can file your collection action against the tenant to get these past due rent. So these were few of the things which tenant needs to do in order to get the protections. And again, you have to, I think, consult with a legal professional, because every case can be different. It also based on locality, because there are few of the localities, either it's Los Angeles or Oakland or few other Bay Area and down south in San Diego. So there are different moratoriums, different protections and waivers in terms of landlord-tenant relationship. So it's really important. You should consult with a legal professional in order to understand those specific things, because this is a generalized state law, a temporary law for tenant protection. So in the next video, we will look how the landlord can still move forward even with these protection the tenants have in certain situation to begin their eviction proceeding. Thank you again for watching these videos.